What if everything you've been told about autism is completely wrong? What if the real struggle isn't the result of a so-called disorder, but from a combination of unresolved emotional triggers, a cognitive mismatch with society, missed social learning in early life, and a world filled with misconceptions that have constantly told you you're somehow broken? In this video, you'll meet Nicola Petersen. She's never had a formal diagnosis, but her entire life has followed the classic trajectory: sensory overwhelm, emotional spirals, social disconnection, and a deep haunting question: why do I always feel like this? She tried everything: therapy, positive thinking, research, pushing through, but nothing brought relief until one unexpected video flipped her entire reality. This video is part one of Nicola's journey, where we follow her progress from being imprisoned by the medical model to reclaiming her life through the ultimate divergence model. It's a journey that will challenge every assumption you've been taught about autism, and it just might help you unlock the truth behind your own struggles. So if you ever felt misunderstood, mislabeled, or unheard, then keep watching, because Nicola's story could be your story, and what comes next might change everything for you. When someone finally finds my content, it's rarely out of curiosity, it's out of desperation. They've usually spent years trying to survive a world that doesn't make sense, a world that's been telling them the problem is them. And by the time they get here, they're not looking for a diagnosis, they're looking for answers. In this first chapter of Nicola's story, you'll hear what it's like to grow up believing you're broken, to doubt your own success, and to develop gifts you didn't ask for, just to survive the emotional minefield around you. Before someone finds their way to my work, they often go through years, sometimes decades, of confusion, misdiagnoses, and emotional overwhelm. For Nicola, it began with her daughter. She started noticing subtle signs, sensory sensitivity, social struggles, and followed the same path so many parents do: specialists, labels, more confusion. But in the process of trying to understand her daughter, she began to uncover something far deeper. What you're about to hear is the moment Nicola's entire reality started to shift. It didn't start with a diagnosis. It started with a question, a feeling, a search for truth that led her somewhere completely unexpected. So how did you first come across my content?
Well, I started questioning my daughter's symptoms.
Yeah.
I Obviously, we were having problems when she was younger. She was, doing a lot of this, and if we tried to wash her hair, she was crying, and it was ow, 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 and even just like touch, she was very sensitive on her head, and yeah, just I noticed little things. So I went to, so then they wanted to look at grommets they did a hearing test because of the ears. Because if it was loud noises, she'd be ducking for cover. If an aeroplane went past overhead or a motorbike went past, she was, and it was just going right through her. So it started there. We went to a pediatrician, and she said, "Oh, have you had her tested for autism?" And I said, "No." She said, "Oh, well, sensory processing." And I said, "No." She said, I'm going to refer you." And I said, "Oh, right, okay." So we did that, and she was diagnosed with sensory processing difficulties. So that was that. That's when she was 5, and it just went on year on year on year on. It was a different symptom. It was different things were flagging. It was social interaction when she was in school. She didn't like the concerts or the shows they put together because of the noise volume. She didn't like crowded rooms, and it went on and on and on. And pretty much sort of, we put a lot of it down to, it was growing up, and technology, and being an she's not an only child, but the other two are 30. So if she's 14, she is in effect an only child. She didn't have a sibling to play with as such. So we put it down to that. But I don't know, the eating from the off, she was picky with what she was putting in her mouth. She didn't like the textures and tastes. Yeah, and it just, and it was, if she had a pasta, it would be pasta for the next 2 months and nothing else. very limited diet. It was lots of different things. So when she went to high school, then it escalated. It just went on steroids because crowded rooms, and then the social side of things just went out of the window. So we just started having problems. So I was researching. The more I was researching, and the more people at the school said, "Oh, have you considered ASD?" And I said, "What's ASD?" I said, "Autism." I said, "Oh, I think I'm high functioning," because I was learning when I was going through about autism, and I thought, Christ, that don't half sound like me. And I mean, I've struggled all my life, but I had a tumultuous upbringing, so I just put it down to that, and as a consequence, I had two failed relationships. I just couldn't get it right. I couldn't get it right, and I innately thought it was, well, I always just, it's me. There's something wrong with me. It's me. I was just misinterpreting things. I felt abandonment, rejection. It was just really tumultuous. I just couldn't seem to get things right I mean, I was trying so hard, but I just couldn't seem to get it right. I was always upset, crying, withdrawing, and I never knew why. They'd say, "Well, what's wrong?" I don't know. I just don't know. I had everything to be happy for. I worked hard as much as I could. I found out quickly that I could only work for myself. I did find that much out, because I never knew when emotions or anything would affect me. It would catch me and it would wipe me out. So I wasn't able to commit there. And that's how the relationships were. They were like a roller coaster, because it would wipe me out. If something triggered me or I'd had a disagreement, it might wipe me out for 3, 4, 5 days. If I'd had an argument, it would put me out on my back. It would just, my emotional system was horrific. And I never knew why. I couldn't understand it. I just did not know. I just thought, I'm broken. There's something just seriously wrong with me. I'm a mess. But I kept putting the brave face on, kept going. And I would just duck and dive and find out where the gaps, where I'd have a peak, and I'd fill myself back up again enough to get up and get out and get on with it, And of course, having 2 children as well, you've got to constantly keep pushing yourself. So that was causing burnout all the time, because I had to be present for them. So I was in a constant fight or flight. Most of my life, I've been in fight or flight. It's just been really, really challenging in every which way possible. And then being in that state and then going into a relationship, knowing what I know now, was, it was just an absolute disaster, but I thought, well, I don't know why. I'm doing all the right things. I'm trying to do all the right things, but it's just not working, for whatever reason, I just felt this void, this just massive void. So fast forward then, as I said, Grace, we were looking at that, and then they said, we think she could be autistic. So we sent her to the centre, the NHS did it took a while, and I had to write it all down. Then they wrote to the school, then they wrote to, doctors, and so on and so forth. And luckily, I say luckily, but because I'm so aware of my own symptoms and what she was expressing to me, I suppose I was able to sort of help me understand what she was going through. And it sounded very similar, obviously. So she was diagnosed. And then I started thinking, is that what's wrong with her? Is that what's the problem is then? Is that what the problem is? Because I just wanted to get her the help she needed, because I didn't want to be in the position I was in, burying it and causing more damage, because I didn't have anybody to talk to as a child or an adult. I didn't understand what was going on. I just did the best I could. But I've suffered all of my life, my whole life. I can honestly say, every photograph I look at, I know what row or what argument or what disagreement I've had, or what upset I've been through, or what rejection I felt. Looking at a photo album is not a joyous thing for me because it's attached with a memory. And I've normally been in some sort of depression at the time. And I've put on a smile to pretend that everything is okay because people around me don't understand why it's not.
Yeah.
So whilst investigating, then I was questioning what autism was. I thought, well, I don't understand why, because I honestly thought my husband's quite sort of, if we can throw the labels around, ADHD. He doesn't sit still. His father's been a quite controlling dad, very opinionated, you know, and very sort of shut you down. It's not that way, it's this way. It's not that way, it's this way. Don't do it like that. Very dismissive. His way is best, you know, and I've watched how that's affected him and the way he communicates. And I started questioning whether she was more like me or him. Then I went down the road of narcissism and I thought, he lacks empathy, very much so, and different traits. And she was sort of mirroring those more than now, at present, more those than the autism. So, yeah, it was basically a rabbit hole of looking at mental health and why and where does it come from and why are the labels and, you know, what's the crossovers. And yeah, so that's how I came across yours then. And I started thinking, this seems awful familiar. Having the shop, you know, the lady that works for me, very, very similar lives. She grew up we're the same age. She's 4 days younger than me. We're exactly the same age. We're very, very similar. She's a people pleaser. She's been told she's got bipolar, ADHD, autism, you name it. She has fits, epileptic fits, or not bad now because she knows how to control them. But she had similar. Her parents were alcoholics, used to just drink. Her father would shout at her to a point where she'd stand there and wet herself on the spot. And even if a man walks in here now, she's, you know, it startles her. She's very jumpy, you know, but she's full of life, you know, and whatever I've learned, I've tried to help her. And we've tried to help each other and support each other emotionally. And so that's how it came about. I started questioning it. And then I thought, what is autism? Because I'm not sure if Grace does have autism. I'm convinced I do, which I know I can definitely attach the trauma related upbringing to that, taken away from my mum at birth, etc., etc. And, you know, my mum hid the pregnancy from her dad, who hit her with a lump of wood in the tummy and tried to abort me. So that was sort of the road I was on, questioning things. And then I woke up in the morning and said, I do normally flick through my phone, but I woke up in the morning and there was your post. It was I opened YouTube and there was your post straight away. And it was like, oh, I just pressed play. And within 3 minutes, it's just like everything I'd been researching just went boink and was coming out of your mouth. And I was just sat there going, you've got to be kidding me. You have got, this is nuts. This is just nuts. Everything you said and everything, it just went like a puzzle. And I thought, wow. And it just made so much sense.
Sometimes before we wake up, we fall apart. For some, it's a slow unraveling. For others, it hits like a storm, sudden, unbearable, and terrifying. This was Nicola's breaking point. Her body shut down, her mind spiraled, and something darker crept in. But what appeared from the outside like psychosis was something far more profound. It was the beginning of the end of an old identity, an old reality, and the beginning of something she could never have imagined.
I flat out on my back, couldn't walk for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. I was on every pain block pill you could think of. I could barely go to the toilet. That was it. And that's when, because I was on my back, that's when I started researching. That's when it all opened up and I started learning about one thing and another. But they wanted to take me into, the local hospital and dose me up. And I said, I'm not leaving my home. I am not leaving my home. But then I started to have, go on, jump, go on, jump. Go on, bang your head against the wall. Go on, bang your head. I started having all the psychosis, all the thoughts, and I had a dark entity come into my room by the side of me. Just a blackness that was horrendous. I saw it walk around the bottom of my bed and to by the side of me. And I thought, shit, what is that? And it was just there. And it was, I had some strange things happen.
This is how it starts for many girls with extreme neural divergence, not with a diagnosis, not with a label, but with silence. They don't know why they can't connect, why they're left out, why they feel different. So they come to their own conclusions. And more often than not, the conclusion is self-blame.
I just used to think people just found me odd and they didn't want to play with me. I just used to stand there on my own like a fucking odd bod and think, oh, well, they just don't like me. What can I do about it?
Some people think masking is just about pretending to fit in, but for many divergent women, it goes much deeper. It becomes a split identity, the creation of a version of yourself that can survive out there. You play the role, you smile for customers, you hold everything together, but inside, there's another self, quiet, uncertain, hidden, not because you're fake, but because you've been forced to become two people. And sometimes the praise, the success, even the dream come true doesn't land because there's a part of you that's still waiting to feel safe enough to enjoy it.
It's trusting. Like, I don't know why I got this, like I said, I got this amazing shop. I got my house. I got nothing to be, it's all material. It's all material. It doesn't, take it or leave it. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. However, I lack so much confidence in myself. It's really bizarre. And other people, if they heard me say that, they'd think, but I really don't believe in myself. Like, I had to, like about 5 years ago, I had to go because people would say, oh, lovely shop, blah, blah, blah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, lovely, lovely, lovely. Yeah, hurry up, get out. And I thought, no, you've got to acknowledge that. I don't, because I'm not attached emotionally, I don't pat myself on the back and say, well done. I don't, it does nothing for me. I don't feel elated in any way if I don't. So that's a bit annoying because I would like to have a sense of well done. I would like that, but I can't piece the two. So I stood across the road one day and I thought, right, go across the road and look back at what you've created. That everyone's telling you is wonderful and you've been successful. Go over and have a look. And I stood there and I was going, yeah, well done. Yeah. Nothing. Just nothing. Just like, for fuck's sake, why do I even do it? Why? And sometimes they come in and I just think, oh no, not again, and I gotta, but I'm okay with being the face of, see? I can do I've done it all my life. The acting, I'm on stage, really. The real me is actually not the me they see. That's the one that suffers. That's the one that goes home and stays home and doesn't go out and, just puts myself in a book or a podcast or learns a new something or other. So they're seeing a completely different version of who I am. So I feel, then I go through imposter syndrome. I feel fake because I feel like I'm faking it. But actually, no, this is my true self. I've just because I faked it for so long, I've associated it as being a fake self.
Mm.
But it's not really. It's just I'm half of one and half of another.
Mm.
It's like I'm two halves. I'm living two parallels.
Yeah.
It would be nice to sort of comfortably merge and enjoy it, I suppose, because it's never enjoyed. So I find praise, recognition, because there's no attachment to, I did it because I always said I wanted a shop. It was not
Mm.
because I wanted money. It was something that when I was a little girl I loved to do.
Mm.
So for me it was an extension of something from my childhood that I always enjoyed in
Mm.
play. So that's why I did it. It was never for the monetary value or anything else. I didn't have no friends. I was bullied when I was 14, 15. I couldn't go out anywhere. So as soon as I could, I opened, I, you know, saved money so that I could open a shop.
Yeah.
And now all those bullies walk past my shop and I think, yeah, now you've got to come in and say hi and be nice to me.
When trauma hits early, trust stops being the default. Your nervous system adapts. You start scanning constantly, watching every glance, every word, every pause, waiting for the moment it all goes wrong. And this becomes the norm, not because you're paranoid, but because your body learned that danger often hides in the people who are supposed to care. This is hypervigilance, and when it's been there for years, even the simplest human connection can feel like walking a tightrope. So
Yeah, for
we
me
can't.
it's the trust element for me.
Yeah.
It's trust in people, because it sounds cliche, but no man in my life has been a
Mm.
trusting figure.
Yeah.
No man. They so it's trust in people, haven't got an ulterior motive.
Mm.
It's constantly being trying to be one step ahead, trying to outsmart people, not
Yeah.
outsmart them, be ahead of the game.
Mm.
Keep your eye on the ball, make sure they're not, trying to be shady. It's that
Well, see,
always, and not being able to let go and relax into comfortably just letting go and opening up,
mm.
and having a secure relationship without that panic setting in and thinking, oh no, oh no, I just seen the way they looked then. That wasn't right. Do you know what? Oh yeah, that wasn't right then. I saw that little look.
Hypervigilance sharpens more than fear. It tunes your senses like a radar. When you've spent years trying to stay one step ahead of danger, you start noticing things others don't. Micro expressions, tone shifts, energy changes. It's not magic, it's pattern recognition. And sometimes it makes you look psychic.
My husband will be stood next to the toaster, and he'll walk out the kitchen and, he'll come by where I'm making a cup of tea, and I'll just open the cupboard and go like that, give him something, and he'll go, oh, thanks. Because I know where his brain's gone before he've even got the words out of his mouth, because
Well,
he's so slow. He's not. It's just I'm
yeah.
reading the energy rapid.
Mm.
I know what he needs before he needs it.
Some people wait a lifetime for answers, but others, they start asking questions. By the time Nicola found my video, she had already begun her own investigation, quietly connecting the dots. The mental health system never helped her piece together. Trauma, sensory overwhelm, emotional shutdowns, not isolated problems, but symptoms of something deeper. In this segment, you'll see what happens when someone who's spent years searching finally sees their entire life begin to make sense, and more than that, sees a way out. Before someone can change their life, they have to question the story they've been told about it. And for Nicola, that questioning had already begun. She wasn't just reflecting on her own pain, she was starting to wonder, what if all these so-called disorders were just different expressions of unresolved trauma? What if the whole model was flawed? So when she stumbled across my video that morning, it didn't just resonate, it confirmed what she already knew in her gut. But
I know, but I was saying to my colleague, this
mm,
was like, it must have been like 5 6 months ago, and I always say to her, I got a thing, right? Whatever I say to you, just try. She's got a memory like an elephant. She don't She's really good with the customers. She's like, oh, hiya, yeah, I remember your wife. She's size 56, isn't she, in the ring size? And he's like, what? She's like got a really good memory with ring sizes on certain people's fingers. Oh yeah, no, don't buy her that stone. She had a red one last week, and then 3 months ago she had a blue one. So go for yellow. And I'm like, how do you remember that? So that's her strength. She's really good with our customers like that. And so when I find something out or I'm experiencing it, I say to her, whatever I tell you, I know it might sound a bit strange, but I tell you because I need you to sort of be my bouncing board. So when I watched your video, I swear I came into the shop and went, do you remember me saying to you 6 months ago, please don't take this the wrong way, but you know, autism, and I whispered it, you know, autism and ADHD and all the rest of it, I think it's trauma. And she looked at me and went, okay. I went, I'm not sure though, and I don't really want to say it because if somebody hears me say that, it's really rude, isn't it? So that's why, but and that's what I said, do you remember me saying that to you? So that's why when I heard you, my eyes just went, oh my God, somebody else who thinks the same. But I had no idea of the, you know, the level of involvement and the work, and the fact that you can clear it is absolutely amazing. Like, you know, I just can't wait. So, you know, it's so ripe for the taking, isn't it? For you to deliver it.
When a person trapped in emotional pain starts to see the pattern, it's like a match being struck in the dark. For Nicola, that match was lit the moment she pressed play. All the research she'd done, all the questions she'd asked, suddenly had a framework, not just for her, but for the woman standing right next to her. Because when something's true, it doesn't just echo in your own mind, it sparks recognition in others too.
And that's
So can you remember what the actual first video was you saw of mine?
I could probably tell you if I could probably tell you. I couldn't believe it. I came straight into work and I said, oh, Joe, you've got to listen to this. This is incredible. So I played it to her. She was like, no. I was like, don't that make sense? And she was like, totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. So we were banging on about it then for, you know, the next half an hour. So yeah, I mean, incredible.
Sometimes a message doesn't just make sense intellectually, it lands in the body. You feel it in your gut, in your bones. For Nicola, it wasn't a slow build of curiosity, it was instant recognition. Not because she was desperate to believe something, but because what I said matched what she already knew deep down, through her own pain, her own instincts, and her own daughter's journey.
So what finally inspired you to take my course?
I think the first one I commented on, I was like, oh my God, I said something because I was sat there and my mouth was wide open. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I think I made a comment. It was pretty, like I said, I mean, I think it was only about 2 weeks after I'd seen the video that I touched base with you.
Yeah.
I mean, it was literally that quick because I thought I need to know more. This is right up my street. This is where I want to go. This is what I absolutely 100% resonates with me. I have no doubt in my mind. Yeah. It was just instant for me. I didn't really have to question it because it was my experience.
Yeah.
It resonated with my experience and it made so much sense. And having a daughter who I gave birth to and went through those similar experiences of trauma with her in utero. So it made so much sense to me because, you know, I was aware of my own situation.
Before Nicola had words to describe her divergence, she was already living it. While the world followed the crowd, she made bold moves no one could make sense of, and in true Divergent fashion, she made it work.
So what actually is your business?
Gift shop.
Oh, right.
So,
like
so
souvenirs type thing? Or?
No. It's a shame I can't show you. You'd have to have a look on Facebook. I sell jewelry, handbags, scarves, candles. It's a boutique style shop, so it's a bit more. It's it's a bit nicer than it's not gifty or trashy or, tea towels and badges and magnets. It's not that kind of thing. It's for ladies who lunch.
Yeah, right.
And have disposable income.
Yeah. So you built that business from scratch?
Yep.
Yep. Well done.
Thank you. I started when we had the first recession, 2009.
Right.
I thought, I know what I'll do. Everyone's going bust. I'll open a shop. Why not? It can only go one way.
You've got to think outside of the box. When everybody's going one way, go the opposite way.
That's exactly what I did. And everybody said, there's something seriously wrong with you. You're mental. And I went, well, I've been called worse. So I did. And 15 years later, I'm still here. So,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
Well.
There's a moment in every transformation when the old explanations just don't cut it anymore. When you've been told it's a disorder or a dysfunction or a lifelong condition. But something inside you says, no, there's something deeper going on here. In this segment, we see that moment happen for Nicola. She starts questioning the diagnoses. She starts recognizing patterns. And most importantly, she starts realizing that the symptoms people call autism might actually be something else entirely, the result of trauma, emotional triggers, and a society that never made space for how her brain truly works. This is where the awakening begins. When you've been misinformed your whole life, the lies don't just shape what you think, they shape who you think you are. And the biggest misconception? That something must be wrong with you. It's no wonder so many people spend years trying to fix a problem that was never theirs to begin with.
Yeah, one of the questions you on there, interrupting you, for the record, I thought autism was a disability that people couldn't speak and possibly were in a wheelchair. That was one of your how do you see it? How did you believe, what did you believe autism to be? I had no idea. I thought it was non-verbal, possibly limbs not working very well. That's what I thought autism was.
It's not just individuals caught in these loops, it's entire generations. Diagnoses handed out like lollies, pills prescribed like breath mints. But if you scratch beneath the surface, the same pattern shows up again and again. Emotional triggers, unresolved pain, and a society that taught us to run from it instead of heal it.
Yeah, everybody that I know at some point, I mean, and we're roughly the same age, at some point has been told they're either they're manic depressive, bipolar, some form of a label.
Hey,
or you've got anxiety. It's I'd say 90% of the fucking population are on antidepressants. Everyone you speak to. I mean, it's getting not so obvious now because obviously the density, I don't know, like the Earth, what we're going through, planetary and so on and so forth. The density is so dense that, it is pushing people and holding people in a vice to spew out their trauma. It is. It's got people by the short and curlies. Sorry, that's my mum. It's got people by the short and curlies, and people are at the moment really vulnerable, and it's shit or bust. A lot of people are being held down so hard to deal with their trauma, and they don't know why. So, for example, the alcoholics are losing grip. Whereas they've been able to chuck it back, keep going, chuck it back, keep going, chuck it. They're losing grip. It's sort of crushing people, and it's making them either really ill or putting them flat on their back. It's forcing people to deal with their trauma. So it's there. It's there for the taking, and what you're doing is fantastic. Yes, once a certain part of humanity and more people wake up and understand that they are actually just labels, then that's when that comes in, kicks in, full throttle for you. But if you need the views, just bypass that for a minute and just run it alongside, because I think everybody and Nan has got some sort of depression or anxiety. I know women, like friends of my mum's, she's like, oh, June's not very well. I'm like, all right. June is my mum's friend. Her son died when he was younger. That woman is 60. She's still walking around with the backpack. So much so, a couple of weeks ago, she petrified, thinking that her daughter was going to die because she had COVID. But it's looping. Yeah. Now I can see that. But she sees me and she fucking runs the other way. Because my mum has spoken to her about what I've helped my mum with. Oh, I tell you what, how Nicola, she don't half know some strange bits and bobs, that girl. So she's telling her friend, well, she comes in my shop and I was out the back and I heard her voice. I went, I heard you. She fucking couldn't get out the shop quick enough. Because I said to Mum, tell her she's stuck in a cycle. It's not. It's just she's frightened of the loss. Where she hasn't released the loss of her son. It's now coming up that her daughter has got COVID and she's going to die and she's petrified. And I said, she's reliving it over and over and over again. Her anxiety, she can't drive anywhere because her anxiety's through the roof and so on and so forth. And, and people are stuck there. That's where they're stuck. And they're just carrying on.
Yeah.
Oh, tomorrow will be a better day. Tomorrow will be better. Oh, tomorrow will be better. And that's where people are stuck there.
What happens when someone starts to step outside the box? When they refuse to take on a label and start asking deeper questions instead? Nicola didn't get trapped in the identity of a diagnosis, and because of that, she saw something most people miss. This isn't just about autism, it's about trauma, it's about humanity. And when you see it through that lens, the healing becomes universal.
And even though I don't have a diagnosis, I felt, that helped. It really comforted me to think, oh, that's why, was it? That's why I felt like that. So that was really lovely as well. So there's still lots in there that don't necessarily need to have anybody who's autistic. I suppose what I'm saying is it's a shame that it can't be opened up to the wider audience because it is talking about trauma.
Something happens when the fog begins to lift, when the old story loses its grip and you start to speak a new one. By this point, Nicola had completed the first 2 modules of the course. She'd dismantled the prison walls of the medical model, and for the first time, she was seeing herself and her daughter through an entirely new lens. Not as broken, not as disordered, but as a powerful divergent mind shaped by trauma, ready to rise. What you're about to see isn't just someone learning a new model, it's someone becoming it. She's not just a student anymore, she's about to become the first official graduate, Ultimate Divergent 002. When someone internalizes the medical model, it's not just a diagnosis, it becomes an identity. So breaking free from that isn't just intellectual, it's emotional. In the first module of my course, I show students how to deconstruct the false foundations of the medical model. Then in module 2, I introduce something new, a model that empowers them, not labels them. And when they start applying it in their own lives, that's when everything changes.
Yeah, neurodivergence. I don't identify as being autistic. I call myself an extreme neurodivergent with a predominantly systemizing cognitive style.
Well, you've made me do that now. You've made me do the same. I said to my daughter earlier, she said, what she say? Oh, there's something wrong with me. I said, no, there's nothing wrong with you actually, Grace. They said you're neurodivergent, just like I am. And I corrected her. So I agree with you. I've picked up that from the course and I thought, no, and I said to her, it cannot be found. And you'd have been so proud of me because I was speaking your language. It cannot be found inside your body. If you break a leg, we can scan it, x-ray it, but you cannot find autism anywhere in your body. So, I thought, there you are, have that. And I thought if she tells someone else that, then, that's great. But
once someone breaks free from the old narrative, they don't just feel relieved, they feel compelled, because now they see it everywhere. They see how many people are suffering under false labels. How many are stuck, not because they're broken, but because the world has given them the wrong map. And the most common reaction I hear, why doesn't everyone know this?
I just want everyone to know about it. That's why I just want. It's so, like, it's just so disappointing to me because I want to just scream to everyone, you've got to listen to this, you've got to all do this, everyone's got to take part. And I just like want, because it's so good, there's so much content in there. And it's
every movement has its first voice, the one who doesn't just understand it but feels it in their bones. Nicola was the first to step in with both feet, not just to heal herself, but to help ignite something far bigger. This isn't just about escaping an old label, it's about becoming something entirely new.
I do, yeah. I think, unlike it, the pattern in itself, in the energy, will start to link up, and it'll grow, and it'll bring its own sort of grid, towards what you're teaching, for sure. It's so exciting. It's just a matter of time, and I can't wait because I'm going to be around to see it.
Well, you'll be getting the certificate as the #1 ultimate divergent from my course. See, you'll have that student.
Yes.
001.
Student of the year. I can't wait. It's absolutely brilliant. But yeah.
By this point, something had shifted. Nicola wasn't just questioning old ideas anymore. She was stepping into a new one. For decades, she'd been stuck in survival mode, constantly reacting, constantly recovering, always coping. But now, for the first time, she wasn't just surviving, she was building something. Piece by piece, she was learning to trust this process, and more importantly, learning to trust herself again. And that's the beauty of what happens when we finally break free from the medical model. We stop asking, what's wrong with me? And we start asking, what do I want to create? Sometimes the biggest leap forward isn't a leap at all. It's letting go of the need to control every step and just stepping into what feels true. For Nicola, the moment she entered the healing modules of the course, she didn't hesitate. There was no checklist, no map, just a deep internal knowing.
Sounds amazing. I'm so excited. I can't wait to do the list and everything. I have no idea. I'm going in blind. I haven't got anything prepared. What the things I want to work on. I'm just so looking forward to taking it step by step and just being in the moment. I got, I'm really looking forward to it.
When you spent your whole life trying to make sense of yourself and finally something fits, you don't just watch a video, you study it, you replay it, you underline it, because every sentence might hold the key to a part of your story that no one else ever explained. And when the content starts answering questions you didn't even know you had, you can't help but go back and watch it again.
To get everything in.
So
I know, it's amazing. There's so much content on there, and it's so, I'm listening to you and I'm reading it underneath to make sure that I got, that I'm, and it's brilliant. And I'm looking down the side and I got my book and I got the module up and I'm like, oh, I don't know where to go. I get so excited. So excited. I can't wait to go back home and start again.
For a lot of people who've experienced trauma, the idea of healing in front of others is overwhelming. The group setting, the public vulnerability, the pressure to open up when your nervous system is screaming no. Most programs don't take this into account, but Ultimate Divergence was built for people like Nicola, people who need safety, privacy, autonomy, people who want to do the real inner work, not in a circle of strangers, but in their own time, in their own way, from the safety of home.
It still applies, and me having done Marissa Peer's RTT hypnotherapy course and qualified as a therapist, having done that, which was an intense 11-month course. It was 11 months and it was intense. And of course, it was the first any modality of healing I'd ever even approached.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're talking, a room full of people and you're working on one another, practicing this modality, and you're there and you're just a flood of bloody tears wondering why. You're in the subconscious and you're remembering your dad smashing the bloody house up. And so the floodgates, it just goes, it knocks you off your feet. And it really pulls you down a vortex, and you know, it's so I've had that experience where a lot has come up, you know, but there's always more, there's always more, there's always more. And of course, because I'm quite an introvert, believe it or not, and I'm not very good with, I'm fine with one-on-one, but I don't, if it interests me, but what I'm supposed to do is be in a group. I'm not great with groups. I can't be asked with it, or I hate it all. Go in the group on Facebook and you're supposed to practice on one another and swap numbers and email. Well, no. That's where I go, no thanks.
For some people, healing means sharing with a group, talking it out, connecting socially. But for others, especially those who've been through years of emotional overwhelm, that kind of setup doesn't feel safe. It feels draining. We're the ones who like to learn quietly, deeply, who need space to think, reflect, and process on our own terms. And when someone like that finally finds a healing method that respects their need for solitude and depth, something powerful happens.
Absolutely, exactly the same, exactly the same. So I didn't get to practice my craft, if you like, which put a block there for me with the healing, because I wasn't constantly practicing with the groups, you know, because I can't be done with the false shit. I just, and it's not nice to say, but I'm uncomfortable with that. I'm just uncomfortable with it. I don't know why, I'm just uncomfortable. So I kind of, when it comes to that, I pull back. You know, I'll work a year on my own independently on anything that interests me. I won't trouble anybody, and I'll fly through it, and I'll really focus, and, you know, I'll really enjoy that, which I did with the course. But I unfortunately, so my point to the question was, which you said in the very beginning, was, so it's very similar. The message is very similar in a different way, in a completely different way. Obviously, you know, what your message is a game changer in society and science as well.
Yeah.
From, you know, it is a game changer. You know, it's a big. Hang on a minute, you know, it's the same as, you know, people walking around asleep, isn't it? You know, they're comfortable. It's a comfort zone, you know. And that's why I said at the beginning, you know, although that's what the message is, it's still a good course for people like myself who don't have a diagnosis.
When someone spends their whole life surviving, dreaming stops feeling safe. You stop thinking about where you want to go because you're just trying to stay upright where you are. That's where Nicola had lived for decades, masking her pain, holding space for everyone but herself, wearing a smile that said, "I'm fine," while silently carrying a backpack full of buried memories. But when the fog begins to lift, something shifts. That spark she thought was gone, it starts flickering back to life. And for the first time, she doesn't just want to survive. She wants to build something new, something real, something that finally includes her. Healing isn't just about understanding ourselves. It's about changing how we respond to the people closest to us, especially when those people carry the same patterns we're trying to break. For Nicola, the emotional trigger dance wasn't just a metaphor. It was her daily reality with her daughter. But instead of reacting like she used to, she started pausing, breathing, responding from a new place. That shift in energy, that choice to stay conscious, that's how generational patterns begin to break.
And yeah, it's like at the moment, it's like, you know, I've almost nailed it with the trigger dance with her. Almost, you know, I always try and take a deep breath before I answer, you know, because it was getting to a point where it was, you know, a nightmare. But now we're sort of it's the part where she's going out and making decisions that are not great and choosing to do things, and it's about me trying to come in on an angle where I'm not controlling the outcomes, but I'm trying to keep her safe. But also she's got to learn how to keep herself safe and make mistakes and move on from them. It's really difficult. It's really difficult because naturally you just want to, you know, wade in, you know, and control situations, but I've kind of chosen a different attitude, and I'm like, well, you have a choice, that you're responsible for your decisions. So I'm coming in on that angle. So I'm giving her a little bit of rope, and a bit of responsibility. But sometimes she can be a right so-and-so, and I'm like,
most people carry it their whole lives, the emotional weight of every moment they never fully processed. For years, Nicola pushed through, coping, surviving, pretending everything was fine. But when she heard the metaphor of the backpack, something clicked. The weight wasn't hers to carry anymore, and for the first time, she realized she could put it down.
That's what I feel. I'm driving literally to work, and I think I'm so looking forward to getting rid of this fucking backpack that I've been carrying around with me for all my life. I'm thinking it's got to go, and the rocks, and I'm there. I'm like, it's fucking going. I've had a titful of it, absolute titful. But yeah, and I'll hopefully have clients for you at the end of it as well. So that'll be nice even if I could just get the immediate people around me to get involved.
Well, some people are born with a calling. You see it in how they show up for others. The natural support, the listening ear, the calm in someone else's storm. But when you carry your own storm inside you, that calling can feel like a burden. You want to help. You're meant to help. But something always holds you back. Nicola knew she had that gift. But she also knew you can't pour from a cup that's full of unhealed pain.
I mean, my end goal, like I said, is to be able to, trust myself enough that because it's like, oh, am I clear? Am I clear? And they say, you don't go anywhere to become, not traumatized or, clear or what have you. It's here and the now. It's what you believe. But that's easier said than done. I do believe a certain element of that. There's several versions of you in the universe, and there's an evolved version at every level, that you have access to. Great.
Yeah.
I'd just like to be able to get to a point where, I can start putting some things into place and helping people, because it's my passion. This has always been my passion, the shop, but I've reached that. I've done that. I've ticked that box. And it's not that I don't like it anymore, but it just doesn't excite me anymore. Like you, I've always been somebody's therapist, coach, helper. That was my role. The first person was my mother. It was always, I was the adult, she was the child. Come on, Mum, it'll be okay. Come on, let's go. Oh, watch me now. I'll make you laugh. Oh, I'll clean up. I'll do that. Oh, what's the matter now? And to this day, oh, I always feel better after talking to you, love. Yeah, well, it's dragged me through the mud and back, because I've also carried your traumas, and you can't burden me with them anymore. That's not fair. So I've always been the person to go to in the family. Oh, go and see Nicola. Go and see. She always makes you feel better. Go and see Nicola. So it's like a natural evolution for me.
Yeah.
But it's always, am I good enough? Am I healed enough?
When someone spends a lifetime in survival mode, they forget what it feels like to create just for the joy of it. They forget what it feels like to wake up excited. But when the emotional blocks begin to lift, something comes back online, not from force, not from pressure, but from that inner spark finally finding room to breathe again.
It's amazing. It's amazing feeling when you're in it and you're creating. It is like I'm getting that now because I'm doing this course. So I'm like buzzing. I'm like, yeah. I can't wait for the next day. Do more. It's the same thing for me.
After a lifetime spent in survival mode, Nicola is finally beginning to glimpse something new, possibility, not just coping, not just getting through another day, but actually designing a future on her own terms. In this final segment of part 1, you'll hear Nicola start to awaken to a deeper truth, that life isn't something she has to survive anymore. It's something she can create. Sometimes all it takes is the right words at the right moment and everything shifts. Nicola had been searching for years, reading, studying, listening, but nothing ever fully explained her experience. Then she heard 3 words in one of my videos. Are you experiencing anxiety, overwhelm, and confusion? For her, those words didn't just describe symptoms. They described her entire life. And for the first time, she didn't feel broken. She felt understood.
So
I think it's something that you said, it was along the lines of, it wasn't this, but there was a part, and you said, like you're experiencing anxiety, something else, and something else. There was three things that you said were experienced, and that I was like, oh my God. Again, I've been studying, learning, reading, watching, but that still hit for me because that was how my life was, full of anxiety, full of, I can't remember the three words you said. You said, are you experiencing, but I will highlight it and find it for you. And I thought, wow, I don't have a diagnosis, but that right there, in a nutshell, is exactly how my life has been. I felt unworthy. I felt broken. I felt full of anxiety. And then you finished with, it's not, it's a blah, 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 blah. And that was a real sort of, it caught my breath, and it was nice. It was soothing. And even though I don't have a diagnosis, I felt, that helped. It really comforted me to think, oh, that's why, was it? That's why I felt like that. So that was really lovely as well. So
when you've spent your whole life just trying to survive, dreaming feels dangerous. Survival leaves no room for what do I want. But something begins to shift once the emotional weight starts to lift. You start to realise maybe you don't have to keep living like this. And for Nicola, this was that moment. The first time she allowed herself to look beyond just coping and started wondering what kind of life she could actually create.
It's mad because, when you're in survival mode, your thoughts don't even dare enter anything other than where you are. You can't. It's just survive. So I've never actually sat down and thought, what do I want? Apart from, help people who have been in the situation that I've been in. That's it. I don't want for anything. I've had all the shiny things. I've got a shop full. And yeah, it's lovely and I'm grateful. Yeah, and I am. I've been very lucky with, and I've worked hard too. But it's just stuff. It's just stuff.
When you sit down and design it, you can design it however you want. There's no guidelines on how your life has to be.
I know, it's mad though, isn't it? It's like some people go, oh, I'd love to win the lottery. And I go, oh no. What would I do with it? It'd get on my nerves. Buy a speedboat. Okay.
What if all the pain, confusion, and endless self-blame wasn't the result of a disorder at all? What if it was a message, a signal that something deeper had been missed, misunderstood, or misnamed? Nicola's journey didn't start with a diagnosis. It started with questions. Why do I feel this way? Why can't I connect like others do? Why do I fall apart when everyone else seems to cope? And most of all, what's wrong with me? But when the answers she'd been given no longer made any sense, she did something extraordinary. She looked even deeper, and what she discovered changed everything, not just about herself, but about the world around her that had been viewing and defining her through a broken lens. In part 2 of Nicola's journey, we'll begin the next chapter, not just of understanding, but of healing. Nicola won't just reframe her story, she'll start reclaiming her power, layer by layer.